Tony,
Yeah,
we're playing Through the Void.
we're playing Through the Void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself if you want, and a little bit about the game and how it came to be.
Sure. My name's Tony. I spent about 20 years working in on and around Catholic churches, and realized my big passion was sharing the good, true, and beautiful things about life with people who didn't necessarily would never necessarily darken the door of a church, and finding beautiful spaces and resonance within that. So I followed advice I gave a lot of people, which is you should, if you feel really called to do something, then you should go do that. And so I left church work and started paying myself a salary from one of my side businesses, which I just gave all the money away before that. Then over the course of the last couple of years have developed Plus One and a whole lot of other stuff. When we originally moved, we had wanted to be really intentional about just being good neighbors to those around us. And though we have done that, a global pandemic does make it a little bit harder to do those things, which left me plenty of time to be developing and playing games, just something I've done for a long time. But started doing more and more with Plus One over the last year. Really love that it lets me do the exact thing I want to do, which is just share life with a bunch of amazing people from different backgrounds, and oftentimes get into very real conversations through play or just before or after things. So yeah, that's a big part of who I am, what I do. And Through the Void is kind of my love letter to a couple different things, mostly hard sci-fi with very weird alien vibes that kind of shift things. I think, and you can disagree with me and you'll be wrong, that the best Star Trek is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. A big part of that is because it doesn't situate itself in an agnostic space. It dives directly into very human realities of war and conflict, occupation, oppression, other things like that, but also leaves faith to kind of sit in the middle of that as a tension. And I love the way that gets explored, not just through the Bajoran people, but through a lot of the different cast members in a way that it doesn't necessarily in any other series, because it's far less episodic because it's stationed. So a lot of reasons I love it. And Also things like Battlestar Galactica, which also has great spiritual themes that run through it,
Mhm.
And a number of other hard sci-fi components, Babylon 5, other things like that. So it can be any number of sci-fi settings. It's an anti-canonical setting, so however you play it is however it emerges around the table, but it takes a lot of those tropes, shakes them up and distills them. Currently, the beta that we're in right now doesn't have any faiths or religions or other stuff like that included in it explicitly. By the time it actually goes out as a printed project later on this year, we'll go to crowdfunding. It will, but right now there's a pretty good beta slice in there that's got some really fun gonzo stuff that me and a bunch of other people have written, but we're going to kind of just play around with some of the core rules. We're also going to introduce a new technique tonight that I've been working on for the last little bit, that's borrowed from Jason Cordova, who wrote Brindlewood Bay, which is live right
Right.
now on Kickstarter, and The Between, which are both tremendous games. Actually, this one's taken specifically from The Between because I really liked it. But Through the Void is set. The only thing about the setting is it's this huge kind of Dyson ring within rings, very much inspired by classic kind of seraphim imagery, Dyson Sphere's space station that's centered around this kind of sparkling singularity. It's the last thing left after wars have decimated everything else in the surrounding systems. All of sentient species have kind of fled here, made their home here. Power is decentralized. Everybody's trying to make it through the day, and the station itself is kind of constantly shifting based on the needs of the people who live there. So it's huge, and you'll never probably explore the entirety of it, but it is dependent on people going out through the void to find the materials it needs to be able to kind of stay afloat and stay operational. Those people are called drifters, and that is who you will play. And so you can find all that at ttrpg.link/TTV if you want to go check out the game or any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what we're going to be playing. We're going to be playing an adventure that I'll actually kind of be writing as we go. called the Trisanctum of the Speaker. Every adventure or a drift that you go to has numerous different ways you can encounter it, and so we're going to write one of those, and then I'll go back through and I'll fill in some of the other ones. But I have some general notes on how I want that to go, and we're going to kind of work on it together, because a big part of Down We Go and Through the Void are team brewing, that we as a table kind of decide what our instance of play looks like. So there's a very high co-creative capacity to it.
Awesome.
That's awesome. I'm
So
excited.
what you said about changing careers and going off and following what college is, like the basis of my work as a spiritual director. You know, it's a lot of it's based on the quote by Howard Thurman, a spiritual director to Martin Luther King Jr. and others in that era, who said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people have come alive."
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited. We're especially excited tonight that you have done what makes you come alive.
Yes.
We get to
Yeah,
talk to you.
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
So when we play, we use games for transformative purposes and for delving into our spiritual questions. We often have an opening ritual, which we're just going to describe tonight because time is very limited, where we ask a couple questions, themed questions. One is, what are your thoughts, comments, and feelings going into today's game? And then we would ask some sort of question related to the game, like, what does the void represent in your life? Might be a question we might ask, and then talk about it.
Yep.
And then we do a name ritual to step into the magic circle of play, the much discussed and sometimes maligned concept that when we play a game, the rules of daily living don't apply. Something happens, there's a little bit of transformation, and you leave, and you've changed a little bit. So we like to enter that circle very purposefully by asking the questions and then doing the names. So we'll just briefly do the name game, where we say our player names, and then we say our character names, and each time the other people repeat the name back and welcome. So my name is Menachem.
Hi, Menachem.
Hi, Menachem.
And tonight I am playing Malark, sometimes called the Mindbender.
Hi, Malark.
Hi, Malark.
And my name is Tanya.
Hey, Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
And I am playing Grace O'Connor, sometimes known as Wings.
Hi,
Hello,
Grace.
Grace O'Connor.
My name is Tony.
Hey,
Hi,
Tony.
Tony.
And tonight I'll be your ref.
Hello, ref.
Hello, ref.
Okay, so we're going to discuss the spiritual applications of the game pretty much as we play. We might take a little meta pull out and go, well, what does this mean? Or we'll see how it flows. So why don't you bring us into the game, Tony?
Yeah, so the new technique we're going to use tonight is something called Through the Portal. So this is kind of taken from, in some ways, Paint the Room by Jason Cordova, but in more ways been called The Unseen from the Between. So before we begin, we're going to narrate a short scene that happens somewhere else in the station with people you will never necessarily interact with, who do not matter to the story, because the station is big and alive, and we want to create a sense that it is bigger than and beyond us. So we're going to describe that because of the nature of both the game tonight as well as the show. We're going to zoom in through the porthole to look at the temple of Bar Lake. So imagine, if you would, that we're zooming outside the station, coming in through the porthole, across an open promenade, and in to a warm temple, the temple of Barlek. I'm going to ask each of you two questions. We'll alternate back and forth. But let's start with you, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
In the temple, what is offered to Barlek?
Rare seeds.
How do we see these being offered?
We see them presented in earthenware like bowls, and they're decorated on the outside, but on the inside we have these seeds, and they are brought from all over different planets, and to preserve the plant life that has existed.
Menachem, what what symbol marks the flesh of those who worship Barlek?
I mean, I can't avoid the sound alike to barley and the seed idea. So I'm going to go with barley.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit more about what that looks like.
It's a sheaf of barley in, as it's growing. So it's just like I think it grows in stalks, and it has kind of like, it's not too different than wheat, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
So it's like just one stalk with the seed leafy parts on top.
Awesome. Tanya, what song is sung here and what does it remember?
Mhm. There is a song, it is a piece of music that I'm thinking of that was from its origins are Japanese, from Old Earth, and it's called The Greening, and it is about it remembers the greening of the world during spring.
Awesome. And last question, what do people take with them from this space?
My mind is in Passover just ending, so I was thinking some unleavened bread.
Love it. They're talking about like barley loaves.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. What does that symbolize in the lives of those who take it?
It's kind of like way bread, I guess, elven way bread, and it's sustenance and nurturance, and kind of go with the greening, growth and rebirth.
Awesome. Very beautiful. As the songs kind of die down, as people depart for this, we watch the camera pull back out, back through the porthole, pan across the mega structure of Eternus Station, and zoom in on a small ship. Certainly one of the smaller ships that comes to and goes. I'll take liberties based on some of the names that came up. Since it is a survey ship, I love the name, the Card Catalog. How does that that feel for you?
Yes.
All right, cool. We talked about some kind of a library theme name, so I think the Card Catalog, maybe the cataloger for short. We see taking off. Give me a sense of where Malark is at inside the ship and what he's doing, and go ahead and describe him as we kind of zoom out away from Eternus as the ship pulls away, and where do we see him?
So the ship has mostly is one big space with succulents and plants that grow in dry temperature, dry zones. So, and mixed with old wooden bookshelves and some library cases, and there's probably a wire across it so the books don't fly out while we're flying. And Tanya actually came up with this image. I am probably pacing back and forth with a book in my hand, mumbling things, maybe even incantations that don't work, right? And reading one of the old rare books I have. I'm a human looking older male, bearded, wearing kind of wizard suggestive robes. I have a functional knife on one hip, and probably some gardening tool hanging from, and I have a lot of little pockets, like a sash with pockets on and stuff to hold seeds and whatnot.
Awesome. What if people asked you your role on the ship, what would you say, but also what is actually true?
I have almost nothing to do with the technology of the ship. I deal in rare plants and rare books. I trade with them across the galaxy and through the portals, I guess, through the void. And so I am keeping the library and the plants alive.
Awesome. So you're the caretaker of the collection.
Yeah, I'm the librarian, I guess.
The librarian. There we go. Awesome. Grace, let's zoom across the ship, and what do we see what do we see as we zoom over to where Grace is at?
So Grace is sitting in the pilot's chair in the cockpit, and her helmet is off. She has a winged helmet that's kind of sitting on the console next to her. If we are not actively flying somewhere, she's probably trying to read one of the books that Melark told her to read. She's got her feet up on the console, leaning back in the chair, and like, oh my God, okay. And why? And she wears a Lycra bodysuit. She's got a holster with a phase pistol in it, and she's got a plasma cutter on the other hip. And yeah, she's struggling to pour through what Melark just seems to whip through so easily.
Is it the medium? Like books are rare on
Yeah.
Oculus. Like this is actually like y'all could probably cash in what's on the ship, which is probably a mix of like actual classic tomes along with just like pulp sci-fi and anything that happens to have survived to this point. All treasures of the past, obviously. But is it the medium or is it the actual content that's hard for Grace to get through?
It's a little bit of both. So Grace is super used to, tech and pouring through words on a screen. That's not as much of an issue. I'm wearing gloves, and I'm just afraid I'm gonna tear or break, or it's gonna disintegrate in my hands. These delicate books, and so yeah, I'm a little nervous about that, but.
Meanwhile, if I get frustrated with a book, I almost throw them sometimes. Then remember, oh yeah, I trade in these, and these keep me alive.
You have a third member of the crew, just ostensibly because Through the Void is actually a lethal game, so characters do die. So as a backup, it's always good to have another character who's just on the ship. But also, let's go ahead and say that they are your tech. They keep the ship flying. Either of y'all have a name that you want to assign to this character.
I can't. He does our tech. I call him, hey tech.
Is it a him or a her or they?
Let's do they.
Right,
let's have them be an andromorph. They, I think, get a little bit perturbed by like, hey tech, because you are referring to their role, but they're also always a little bit unclear about like whether that's a comment on like the fact that they have these kind of worrying bits on the end of their fingers and other stuff like that. Also too, not in any sort of sincere way, but I think there's always a little bit of like questionable, like, how do I feel about that in their tone, like anytime you see it. But I think I don't think it's necessarily anything that you've become aware of to the point, and nothing that creates genuine animosity, just a little bit of a lingering and hanging question in the ship. But they're down, they're down in the bay down below, making sure that the temperature and humidity are kept at a constant for the maintaining of the books and the plants that y'all have been cataloging as you go along. Y'all are traveling a few days out. There's a section of space you've been asked to survey specifically that needs a ship like yours. Basically one that can maintain its own food stores if necessary. The fact that the terrarium can also double as somewhat of a greenhouse was an important factor here, because there are significant pockets of space that where traditional engines don't seem to work, and you have to go mostly on thruster power. So it takes a longer time as you hit these pockets, and they've never been properly mapped. Menachem, you've heard a rumor of a set of ancient tomes that are out here, and these are the books of 3 different people in history who are just referred to as speakers. There's Chamberlain, Lanok, and Zelfrey. What rumor have you heard about one of those figures, Chamberlain, Lanark, or Zelfrey?
Well, I am chasing truth with a capital T. I'm convinced I'm going to find it in one of these books one day. So I think I've heard that either Lanark or Zelfrey, let's see, Lanark has an indisputable truth of the universe that he is written about in one of these books.
Okay.
And
Which makes sense because Lanark is known as the speaker of knowledge, whereas Chamberlain is known as the speaker of life, and Zelfrey as the speaker of death. So if you are in search of truth, what truth do you hope to find in that book? I know you're just looking for a truth, but as Malark kind of looks interiorly, what are they hoping is the case?
you know how the reality is we have to do our hard work and process things and come to our own conclusions. Well, I want an answer to be given to me. Right. I want the answer to come out. I will have enlightenment of some sort when I read this book. So I don't know that. Go ahead.
No, I love that. That's great. Like it is literally like, it is just the quick answer. And you've heard that if anybody has the quick answer, it's going to be Lanark, the speaker of knowledge. I love that. Grace, what is the first sign you have that the subspace around you has started to deteriorate and your engines are no longer working properly?
I begin to see debris around me. And I can't figure out why. Like the things are hitting the ship. And I can hear our own engines sputtering.
Okay. You kind of hear that sputtering sound. Tech calls up from down below. Yeah, everything just cut out a second ago. I think we're just on thruster power now. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Alex is the andromorph's name. And I call them Alex because I want them to, yeah. So Alex, I'd heard that this was a possibility, but are the thrusters doing okay?
Yeah, it looks like they're fine. It looks like they just can't build up the bubble we need to move any faster. This is exactly what we anticipated. We're going to hit pockets like this off and on.
Okay. It's a good thing we got food.
Yeah, we should be good for about a week out here. You as you guys drift off and on, you'll hit points where the engines will queue back up, at other points where they'll just cut out. And again, the whole goal here is they just want you surveying the space. So far, it's meteorites. You find a couple of different salvage points that are not things that your ship is equipped to deal with. Old giant Leviathan class ships, broken up stations, small planetoids, things that are kind of outside of your purview, but y'all are able to easily kind of mark them on the map for other people to follow up. But there is a point at which you all of a sudden on your sensors detect that there's a pocket of an intact pocket of air up ahead inside of a what looks like it's a small outpost colony on the side of an asteroid that looks like it's still pressurized. And there are a couple, 3 easy docking ports around the edge of the asteroid that would make it easy for you to access. What do you do?
Were they asking us if you find people or anything out there, check it out kind of thing?
You know, it's never a bad idea to rescue people, but your mandate is to document this section. You do know that you know, the planetoids might have had some growth on them, but a pocket of atmosphere typically indicates that it's either there were people here, but lots of times when you guys find these spaces, if there were people here, it's very much a there were people here. There
Right.
are not people here anymore. These are either abandoned, the people long ago died. They're no longer necessarily intact spaces. So when you find a pressurized space, oftentimes what it will also recommend suggest is there might be plants to gather. There might be books to be found. And
Yeah,
so
good place.
that's, plants will survive the void of space pretty well. I'm sorry, books will survive the void of space pretty well. Plants not as much.
Right.
I have my Indiana Jones's dad notebook with all my notes for things in it. Yeah, so I'll make some notes and consider that a good option. We should go there.
Right. Alex, is it secure? Is it, can we breathe in there, or are there any leaks?
There's still atmosphere inside of it. So, I mean, I don't know if the air is any good. You'll probably have to go in to take a sample, but sensors make it look like there's very low power levels. And as long as all the seals are still intact and you don't blow one, you should be fine.
All right. Let's go check it out.
Thank you, Tech.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Sorry. Sorry.
So it takes a little bit to dock with the ship, but ships are designed to dock with docking ports. Docking ports are designed to dock with ships. As you pull up, you can look outside, and the sensors confirm that there are those 3 landing pods. There is a ship attached to one of them also. There don't appear to be any power signals coming from the ship. But you've got 2 other docks that you can choose from. They're kind of equally spaced around the outside of this kind of this asteroid with this dome structure on top. As you pull up, Malark, when you look out the window, what to you suggests that this was once a place that highly valued learning and knowledge?
I'm going to go with an arcane symbol built into the, not painted because it's space, but like the metal is darker to make an arcane symbol on the, top of the, on one side of the outpost.
Awesome. Cool. Tanya, sorry, Grace, as you start to look for a place to dock the ship, what gives you pause for a moment? Like, what causes you concern as you're starting to dock?
I see a body. I see a body floating outside the station, or outside the bubble.
Tell me about the body you see floating. What has happened to it?
It is in a suit, but its arms are it's like just laying out, and its arms are crossed like this. And it appears to be at peace. Like the face appears to be at peace. But it's just kind of floating out there. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's never great to pull up somewhere and have a body bounce off the
right
windshield. It's never.
Is that a what? No.
Yeah. You land and you down dock. There's nothing clamps on in the way that it's supposed to, but you're able to secure the ship. It's going to be it's a short walk to the outer airlock for this space. Tech is going to stay on the ship just to make sure everything's kosher, and keeps monitoring sensors as the 2 of y'all go aboard. Tell me a little bit about what it looks like as y'all cross this kind of gangway over to the airlock. Grace, you're kind of kitted out in a way that it's easy to slide in and out of a spacesuit without much trouble. But Malark, what does it look like as you're getting ready to step out into space?
I first try shoving my robes inside the suit. Then it's like, no, I take off my robes, put on the suit, and put the robes on over the suit.
All right. Awesome. What is your we've got the winged helmet for Grace. What kind of helmet do we have for you? Do you have a big bubble helmet, classic kind of like shutter helmet? What are we looking at?
Yeah, it's not a huge bubble helmet. It's a little bit close to my face. Definitely has a visor that I can lift up if I want to. The visor is, when I bring the visor down, you cannot really see my face.
Okay.
So I can see out, but nobody can see in. And yeah, there's wings, and I feel like as I'm helping Malark with putting his robes back on, that and getting his suit on, I just mutter softly, they have a name, and it's Alexander, or it's Alex.
But they're so good at tech.
But they have a name.
Okay, Grace O'Connor.
I thought I was just ready for it to be like, okay, wings. Y'all make your way out across, and you get to the outer door. You look up and you notice that there's this arcane, unreadable kind of script kind of emblazoned over the top of the doorway. Malark, you can kind of pick out a couple of letters, but you can't quite make out exactly what it's indicating. It's not in a language that's in common use anymore.
I'm trying to copy it with my thick gloves on, into my little book.
Thank goodness we engineered those super expensive space pens, and also that we have pencils.
Yes. I just take a picture of it.
Yeah. Well, as you take it, the power on the airlock is no longer functioning, but you're able to kind of force the manual release open, get inside, and get it to start cycling properly. It does seem to be bringing air into the space that you're in. How breathable that air is, you'll have to do some actual sensor work to try to figure out, which you can start doing whenever you want to as it kind of starts cycling. But it's this tight space. There's probably room for the two of you and maybe one other person or some equipment as you go in. It seems like this is almost intended for one person to enter at a time. So it's very much a tight fit, mildly claustrophobic. And all of a sudden you hear the as the interior door starts to free up, and you can enter into the inner part of the drift.
Okay. I would like to check a handheld and see if it can read what the atmosphere is like.
Sure. Do you have a set of sensors in your inventory?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you take it out. You do a reading. It looks like it's probably not great air, but there is oxygen. There's some nitrogen. There's other trace gases also too. Okay. It looks generally breathable, but thin and stale probably.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, we can breathe this, but it's not going to be great. And but I mean, in a pinch,
They need some plants in here.
Probably. Yeah, that would work.
Did you point out the body to me, or did you just kind of notice it? And
I told you about it.
Okay.
As you step inside, or if you step inside, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
As you step inside, power is low, but you can see that there's a set of lights on the floor. There's some sort of dust particulate that you guys disturb in very low gravity as that kind of kicks up into the air as you enter. It just looks like what's settled in here over time, but it's not a ton of it, but there's enough that whatever lights you're using to see through catches the kind of swirls of dust as they work their way through the low gravity of the space around you. The walls are covered with what look like very intricate designs, and the middle of the room has kind of a convex wall that's coming in. Imagine that you're in kind of a triangular room that rises up into a domed top behind you. So the back wall kind of curves up over your head and becomes the ceiling. The walls are straight. And from the outside, it looks like this is probably about a third of the space of this whole of the whole dome that you're in. And you're kind of in this kind of cutout section of it, almost if somebody had taken a half of a bubble and sliced it into thirds. That's the shape of the room that you're in. But there are these intricate carvings that go up the ceiling behind you, up the walls beside you, except for this one kind of domed out wall towards the middle that is coming out towards you. It has a crystalline, clear structure. There's something kind of floating and flickering inside of it.
I do have low light goggles.
Then you can see all of that stuff, but much more clearly. Yeah, but if you want to take a look at anything, you absolutely can.
The flickering floating thing is, I mean, I'm looking at the whole wall as I walk.
Yeah,
the symbols, but
yeah.
So as you look a little bit closer at the wall, you realize that the symbols that are worked into the wall are text. They are incredibly tiny lines of text that seem to be worked into a larger repeating pattern that goes around this entire room. It's incredibly detailed work, and it's very rare that you've seen metalworking like this, especially on this scale. On the station, most stuff is industrial. If it's fine or artistic, it's usually very small and very precious. Most things are massively fabricated piece after piece. And so this type of detailed work is definitely from before the Solar Wars. This is an ancient space that you're in.
do that picture thing. I wave at you.
I take some photos, but I also reach out and I trace some of the is it carvings or is it flat?
As you reach out and your hands touch it, it is carved into the metal. Like you can even, like, you can't feel it because you've got gloves on, but you can get the sensation of your gloves moving up and down as they trace across this.
Okay. So I just traced some of the lettering or some of the figures. And I just kind of look, it just seems like regular dust. Or does it seem like regular dust? Is it?
As far as you can tell, it looks like regular. I mean, it literally just looks like regular dust. It's a little spooky, but I mean, it looks like regular dust.
Right. And it makes me wonder how long the body has been floating.
Yeah. Did you park? It's up to you. Did you land? We'll use the other ship as a point of orientation, right? Because it's a circle. Did you come in? If you were nose towards the ship, did you land to the left or did you land to the right? On one of the other two pads.
To the left.
Okay. You do see that there are alcoves, like, equally spaced on the two walls above you, like I said, and then there's that crystalline wall in front of you.
Okay.
I'm gonna go check out that crystal wall.
Awesome. As you start to walk up to it, you get a little bit of a sense um like almost feels like static in your brain starting to build up.
Fascinating.
Do both of us sense that, or is it just Millark?
Do you move closer?
Yes.
So as you move closer, Millark, you get a even more static starting to build up in your mind. Grace, you don't notice anything.
Oh, okay.
Like can't concentrate, can't think static, or just kind of like something's vibrating all around me?
Thinking is fine. Concentrating is a little bit harder. It's almost like white noise for your verdant senses.
Mm.
How do you translate verdant here? Just curious, because I think of greenery and
Yeah, I mean that's just really it's a Spock reference
magic.
there. It's green blood. The and it's like life and other stuff like that. Like there, it's however we want to interpret it right now. So if you want to take it as plants, that's fine. It's kind of vaguely like life energy though. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try and take a moment to refocus.
Awesome.
Kind of like fine tuning the old televisions, where you had to kind of play with the bunny ears. I'm playing with my internal bunny ears to try and cut out the white noise, try and tune into the channel.
This is I don't though I think this is probably something that's more akin to your background than any specific specialty you have. It sounds like. Let's make a luck roll to see how that goes. So this is going to be a D6 roll.
1d6.
Just a D6. Well, there's a little bit of a process. So we always start out at typically 3 out of 6, 50-50 chance you want to roll high, right? Depending on the circumstances, that might go up, that might go down a little bit. So I'll say you don't know what this is. It is a little bit disconcerting. You're in a spaceship in an unknown space. So I'm going to move that down to a 2 out of 6. So basically it means you need to roll a 5 or a 6 to succeed. Now you can always then say to me, hey ref, here's why I think that roll should be lower. You can also say, hey ref, here's why I think that roll should be harder. But do you have any reasons for me why you think this roll should get moved back down to make it easier for you?
I'll argue that given my connection to my work of plants and and especially rare plants that might have special mystical qualities.
If the concept is your plants that you seek out are specifically plants with medicinal or spiritual qualities, I'll 100% and especially if you're like, this is what our diet's been for the last little bit because we've been out here longer, I'll 100% move that back down to just 50-50.
There's occasionally some psychedelics that we eat, or at least I do.
You serve, some people eat. We won't talk about who does or who doesn't.
I rolled a 4.
You rolled a 4, so that's great. You always higher is better. So 4, 5, 6 are successes. So yeah, you're able to kind of bring it back down, kind of calm or recenter yourself, and kind of cut through whatever this happens to be. This all happens as this is happening. Grace, tell me a little bit. Are you still just continuing to move forward?
I think I noticed that Millark is like tilting his head and like he's shaking and trying to figure something out, and I can notice that something's wrong. And my whole thing is protecting him. Mm-hmm. So my hand lowers just to the holster, doesn't draw, but I'm on my guard. I'm on alert. And so I start looking around for things that might present a danger.
Awesome. As you kind of look around, the only thing that you notice, and it's only now because you're looking for it, the flickering in that central space has increased, not tremendously, not dramatically, but it has increased. Whatever's happening there, there has been some sort of very minor intensification in it. You're about 2/3 of the way across the room right now.
Okay. And we're like right together. We're not, we're at the same
You guys
place.
are, yeah, pretty much step into step. I think at this point, based on your description,
Mhm.
you may have gotten like a step beyond him as he
Yeah.
had kind of paused and then stopped to look back, it sounded like. So if
Yeah.
that tracks with you, I think that's you're pretty much neck and neck, maybe a step ahead though.
Okay. That would make sense, because I would want to like put my hand out and like maybe don't rush forward.
I'm having an moment.
You are, and I'm going to protect you through it, because I'm worried about this thing that's like your head's tilted and this thing's going a little, oscillating a little faster or whatever, and I can see that it's connected. So I'm concerned that it's having an effect on you, that is going to be unpleasant or have unpleasant results. So I'm trying to protect you, but I advance forward.
Okay. As you advance forward, these things happen simultaneously.
Okay.
Malark, the static increases. You have it under control, but you can like sense it increasing. It's not painful. It's not anything else, but you can sense an increase in it. The flickering is starting to kind of take shape into something in that middle kind of crystalline space.
Can we both see that?
You can both see that, yeah.
Okay.
I'll say hello.
No response.
Just move forward.
I move forward, and hand is definitely on my weapon at this point, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I, how close am I to the crystalline wall?
How close do you want to get to the crystalline wall?
I want to touch it.
As you reach out to, like, your hand is a little bit, Menachem, go ahead and make another luck roll for me.
1.
Awesome.
Lovely.
Two things happen simultaneously. One, all of a sudden a star chart starts to swirl in the middle of this space in front of you. And it seems to then like pan out and be resolving into something else. Malark, you are overwhelmed by the static energy. You're not going to take any kind of damage. That's not what's happening here. But it is taking every bit of willpower you have to stay on your feet and not back up, right? It takes all of your mental control in order to be able to do this. And I will clarify this. You also have an ability you can trigger. You can trigger it right now if you want to by just saying the catchphrase. However, I'm not saying you need to. I'm just reminding you that you can, your verdant mystic ability, you can trigger that. That's triggered by you, not me. I'm just reminding you. If your character wants to know whether this is dangerous, they have that ability. They could also save it for later if you just want to play it out and see how it happens.
I didn't realize that was a catchphrase. I thought it was a description.
It is kind of, but when you say that, that tells me as the ref, I want to do that thing.
I've sensed something.
So you kind of reach out with your mind at this moment as things start to overwhelm you. And you don't sense danger. You do sense that there is a pattern to this static that is starting to take shape. As you, in a lot of ways, it feels like that star map that Grace is looking at in light is almost trying to force its way into your brain. And so I'll leave you with that for a second. You can decide how you want to deal with the star map trying to force its way into your brain. We'll come back to that in a moment. Grace, what pops up next is almost looks like part of a control panel. It's in the same archaic language that you can't make out, that's kind of surrounding you, was over the door as you came in. But this very much strikes you as some sort of hollow crystalline computer interface.
Okay. I look at some of the pictures that I've taken, and I try to discern some sort of pattern. Like, is there something that might say open or on or something like that? Is there a similarity in patterns?
Nothing that would give you immediate linguistic access.
Right.
Though, what are your skills in again for me?
I've hack.
Okay.
And like combat ready and
Cool.
micro.
So you've got Merc and tech. So
yeah.
The tech part of your brain is telling you like, all right, like if this is a computer, it's got to have a programming language. Like the actual language, no.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
You
There's
can
no
tell enough
way.
to be like patterns. Yes. Okay. What's on there does match those things. You don't know what it is. If you can get into this thing's core programming, you would probably have a better shot at figuring out what it is, what it says, what it does. Potentially even be able to just make it read English or whatever space language everybody speaks.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I try to get into it.
Do you want to use your hack ability?
Yes, I'd love to.
Awesome. Let's switch back over to Malark. Malark, you've got this kind of image trying to burn itself into your brain. What do you do?
You know, one shot, so you play it like you stole it. I'm gonna take off my helmet.
Take off your, and you're letting it come in. Is that the con?
Yeah.
Great. Just making sure.
So man.
All of a sudden, as you're starting to type in Grace, like, right, and kind of jack into this system with some different rods, wires coming out to your data pad into this thing. And you like, there's a little bit of a ridge there that when you pop open, you can actually see like, okay, here's a control rod, I think. Like you're kind of feeling that. All of a sudden you hear like the of a helmet being cracked open behind you. We'll come back to what your response to that is in just 1 second. And you let it hit you, Malark, and all of a sudden, like, you are seeing this space that you're in as if you were outside of it, even to the point of it looks like it's newer, fresher. You see almost in speed people coming in and out of this place, and this place being constructed up very early. It's like, it's almost like it's placing itself in time for you. You get a sense of how long this has been here, and it has been here for hundreds of years. And the star chart that it has, you realize are the stars as they were at the time this thing was made. It is the actual location of where you are in space, and it gives you a sense, a very detailed sense of these kind of holes and pockets around you, why they were placed there, and how they kind of protect this space. You all of a sudden are very aware of the reality of this particular space in a way that I don't know if Malark has experienced anything like this before. If so, tell me if this is a new experience for them.
Okay, take it as somewhat new. Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you sense that kind of just sense of space, and you do get almost a little bit of an insight from that span of time into a little bit of this language that's around you. There's not enough to even necessarily read what it is, but kind of the alphabetical pattern, some of the stuff that Grace was just searching for is barely starting to come to you.
A mumble sound like deep spiritual truths.
When you do turn around, there is like a little bit of blood coming out of Malark's nose, Grace.
I drop what I'm doing, and what the hell are you doing? And I'm trying to like put his helmet back on.
Yeah.
And so I realize that he's fighting me. So I grab him by the shoulders. He's like mumbling incoherently. And I grab him by the shoulders and I'm like, what is happening? What is happening to you?
This space is very intentional.
I mean, yeah, like it was intended to do something.
No, capital
What?
I, intentional.
Oh, you're doing the spiritual thing again. Okay. You're also bleeding. So what's happening in your head? I'm mildly afraid that your head's going to explode.
Like you
Doesn't
feel fine.
Does not feel like it at all.
Yeah. And I'll be transparent. You haven't lost any hit points. Like you feel fine. Your brain is like, there's, some light bleed. It's fine. It'll be fine.
It's like some of the plants we have on board when I eat them.
Oh, okay. But they never make your nose bleed.
No.
So Grace, you kind of check them. You were able to get in and start to access the system.
Okay.
The space y'all are in right now is stark and empty. Also, as you're up there and you're kind of getting up this close, you can see through this light that there are two other rooms that take up the rest of this space that you can't quite see what's in them, but you can see that they exist. And this is obviously a cylinder.
Right.
Whatever this crystalline structure is, set in the middle of this space.
Okay.
So I want to point out we're at 32 past the hour. It means we have about a half hour left for the show.
Yep.
So
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, I just keep trying to hack in and seeing what this thing is that is inside the cylinder.
Yeah. So as you kind of you're in it, it takes a little bit of time. And normally in TDV, because you wouldn't know this, abilities represent instantaneous results. Anything when you're like you use an ability and it takes time means this was something that would have taken you days otherwise. So like
Gotcha.
You're tracking through it quickly. You're seeing a lot of success. Lots of things are happening. You're moving pieces around. As a matter of fact, very quickly, like you realize that there are these two alcoves that are kind of to the side that you could just kind of see the brief inlay as the pattern changes. They're doors. You're able to pop those if you want to. You're able to not pop them if you want to. That would let you move into the other spaces. But as you get deeper into it, you realize that there's something that's almost playfully antagonizing you as you go through this technology. Like, in a sense, whatever is in here seems to be responding to you, not aggressively,
Right.
but almost as if it's testing you.
Okay.
As you go into it. But you're in the system. You're able to access it. Tell me how you want to approach this reality.
I kind of grin to myself and I say out loud, "Oh, I see you playing with me. Game on. Let's do this." And I keep working with it, but I'm also really curious. Like I want to move into one of those rooms.
Okay.
I want to see what's going on.
So I mean, you can, whatever you want to, you can pause it. You've got access to it.
All right.
You know how to get into the system. You can leave your stuff set up. You're not going to lose that.
Okay.
So if you want to explore the other spaces, you absolutely can.
All right. I go to the space to the left of me.
So you guys came into the left of the spaceship. So you're going into the space that currently does not have a ship docked outside of it, right? Is the intention. It's a little hard when I don't have a map drawn for this space yet, but you're moving around the circle into the next empty space, essentially.
Right. If I'm gonna go ahead.
If I start backing up, do I lose the link or does it stay with me?
Whatever happened, it almost was as if it coalesced, right? So you moved up. Once you let it in, it happened and it was done.
Okay.
And since then, like I said, you have a little bit of time while Grace is doing that. You can look around. You haven't picked up words yet, but like I said, you're able to actually start picking out letters, and there's not a one-to-one translation, but you're able to start kind of getting a sense of how these letters fit together. Um, as you just kind of work your way around the room, and it looks like these markings are just lines and lines and lines and lines of text works together.
I'm probably
But
going to
still,
follow. Probably going to
yeah,
follow Grace when she leaves.
awesome.
And I'm also going to be saying out loud, Lanach, Zephyr, Chamberlain. Three segments.
As you make your way into the next space, the room looks very similar, except for the fact that there are rows of benches facing that same central space. So these kind of round, expanding rows of benches. They're different sizes. So some of them are very diminutive. Some of them are very big, and you'd almost have to crawl up onto them. You can see an airlock off to the side, similar to the one you came into. And again, you can see that crystalline structure, and it's flickering more than it was in the other room, but you can also see the light from the other room, the patterns that had popped up on there cascading through. So it's hard to get a sense if it's more intense or not.
No hesitation, go up to it.
So as you start walking up, you do start to feel a static building as you start to approach it.
Should I roll again?
It depends. Do you keep on going?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, make a D6 roll for me.
2.
Okay. So you're gonna take a hit of damage this time. As you start to move up, all of a sudden you find yourself overwhelmed by this static energy. It didn't hurt last time. This time it does. Blood starts to kind of move fresh. I don't know if you make a noise or not, if you cry out, but you're going to take that one hit of damage.
Oh.
Okay.
Looks like we have like what, 10 boxes here?
It's determined by your roll. So what do you have the primary amount of points in?
2 in recon and 1 in medic.
So you have 3 hit points.
Okay.
So it does a decent chunk. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
you have 4 because y'all are up a level, which gives you an extra hit point. You have 4 wings. You actually with Merc as your highest, you have 6.
Okay.
But yeah, you kind of like you lose control of your faculties. You start to kind of like drop down to one knee as this energy, as this static kind of starts to overwhelm you. Same question though. Do you let it in or not?
Oh, I'm ridiculous. Yes.
Wings, you see kind of this faltering. What do you do?
I try to grab him and drag him back. Man, this is no good. What are you doing? And I just start dragging him back.
So
let me go first.
Malark, you're kind of a wash in this knowledge. This time it's not a sense of time. This time you're actually the phonetic and linguistic structures of whatever this language surrounding you are start to piece themselves together in your mind. You look up, and in the same way that star chart existed, like you see lines being drawn between points on the wall, and all of a sudden the geometry of the space that you're in, the way it kind of even folds over and curves, like starts to make sense as you start to be able to pick out words and phrases from around the room. Tell me about the phrase that first stands out to Malark.
Hear what is spoken.
Awesome. So Grace, you're pulling him back. He's looking not great at this point in time. What do you do?
Does he repeat that phrase? Malark, do you repeat that phrase? Hear what is spoken?
I look up one. Hear what is spoken. I just
Okay.
did it once.
All right. And you're saying it in, okay. And I'm like, you haven't spoken. And I just,
No, that's what it says.
I look around and I shove Malark into one of the chairs or into one of the benches. That looks like it. Actually, I'd probably shove him into the big one. So he looks like a little kid sitting in this big chair.
Awesome.
Stay there.
And what do you do?
I tell him to stay. And then I go and I try to, is there another console here?
So yeah, this, other than the pews, this seems to largely be
the same thing.
A similar space. The patterns look like they might be a little bit different, but you can't really pick up on the language. Malark, these patterns are obviously a different set. Like this is another set of knowledge from the other room. Same script, same text, same thematic build, but a very different set of words and phrases have been inscribed into this room. But yeah, it looks the same to you, Grace.
Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna hack into it like I did the last one.
Yeah, well, it's same operating system. As a matter of fact, like it queues up as you come up, you pop it open, you're able to, we're gonna let it ride. I mean, like one of the big things for Through the Void is abilities should be like, if this was a completely separate computer panel, it's not conceptually, it's just one spread around 3 rows.
Oh, okay.
So you're able to get in. Again, it doesn't even take you as long this time. And you kind of sense almost as if something was, whatever this thing was playing with you in the other room, it's almost as if it was expectantly waiting for you to come into the space and is excited to see you. What do you want to do?
I kind of laugh and I say, I want to see you too, but don't hurt my friend. You can't hurt him.
There's like a few different like panels like flicker, almost like you almost get a sense of like laughter from it.
Okay.
But like a giggle, not like a like weird like like it's almost childlike.
Okay.
In interest of time, we are running out of it.
Let's go to the third room. I feel like there's something in that third room.
Grace is busy there. I just like get up and run through the other door.
Awesome. As you come around, Malark, you come into that next room, and Grace, you hear this kind of like scuttering behind you as the doors kind of slide. You see same thing. Space is empty again this time, and there's a lone figure in a spacesuit kneeling, facing away from you, facing towards the crystal in the middle of the room.
I'm going to approach quietly, but making an occasional intentional scuffle on the floor.
Okay.
And kneel down.
Next to it?
Yeah.
Awesome. As you kneel down, that static builds again. What's the first thing that makes you aware that the figure in the suit next to you is dead?
I was gonna say no reaction and no life sense, right? I'm kind of attuned to life, especially since I'm in tune right now.
Roll the d6 for me. Let's see.
6.
Awesome. It's easy this time. Whatever caused you pain last time, you don't know. The light panels in front of you in the same way they have as Razor Purchase actually lights up in response to you. And you can clearly see the words in front of you. Take what you need. leave what you have. What do you do? We'll come back to you in just 1 second to answer that. Grace, what are you doing?
As I'm just kind of playing around at the console and I hear Malark leave. And so I chase him. So as he is kneeling down, like I just slide into the room. And I've got my weapon out because I don't know what's gonna happen.
Okay.
And I know that there's a ship docked here.
Yeah. You see that same figure that he's kneeling next to as he comes in the room. You also see some words, and it's very clearly like this is not control panels. This is a message that is flashed up in front of Malark. It is not the same as the other two. Malark, what do you do?
Is it the language? Is it a language I can read?
It's not. It's whatever the language that's surrounding the room is.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, I take my knife and I take all the little plant pockets, the seedlings and things I have in my pocket, and I put them down in front of me.
Nothing happens. You get a sense that of almost that it's inspecting those things. Grace, you can actually watch the lights behind this thing as all of a sudden now kind of all three panels have lit up. There's something coalescing even more behind all these. It almost looks as if there's a figure who's starting to step into your vision out of nowhere in kind of a holographic representation within this crystal. Malark, you can tell that if you want knowledge, that these things are fine, but it wants your memory of these things in order to give you the knowledge that you see.
I start telling stories about collecting these seeds and what the plants do and how they are useful and beautiful.
As you are telling it these things, as the words leave your mouth, and you don't notice this till about halfway through the first story, you are starting to not be able to remember the story that you were in the middle of telling. Like it is taking the knowledge from you literally. What do you do?
I'll pause. And let us start the exchange.
We'll shortcut it really quickly. What is the main question that you want it to answer for you?
I want truth.
You hear a voice speak to you audibly. Grace, you hear a voice that you don't understand speaking audibly. Malak, you understand the voice. I speak for knowledge. If you seek knowledge, I can give it to you. But you also must embrace both life and death.
I will do so.
And you then hear it say, which would you pursue first?
Between life and death?
Mm-hmm.
Life.
And you hear it say, I speak for life, and it seems to almost be as if it's inviting you to return the phrase.
I speak for life.
I speak for knowledge.
I speak for knowledge.
And then all of a sudden, go ahead and make one more D6 roll for me.
3.
Awesome. This one was a lower threshold because you did the memory exchange. Had you not, then it would not have been as easy. Another star pattern hits you, and all of a sudden you are aware of where the trisanctum of the speaker Chamberlain is situated in space, across far away from here, but you have a sense of its specific location in the same way that you are aware of this space. You have become aware of that space as well. As that happens, you black out. Grace, what do you do?
um I am approaching and I'm trying to feel for life signs of this figure that's kneeling beside Malark, and I realize it's dead. Can I see its face? Like, is it human? Is it something else? Is it?
It's not. It doesn't appear to be human. It appears to be elongated. You can't tell. Like it's a kind of got a bluish greenish tint, like everything on this crystal does. So you can't get the skin. But the fact that it has 2 extra eyes placed down below and no ears, dead giveaway. Probably
Right.
not human.
Gotcha. Okay. And right at that point, I hear this dialogue that Malark is having, but I just hear like whatever they're saying.
Whatever the alien language happening around you is.
Right. And is Malark speaking in that language, or is he speaking in the language that I can understand?
Mostly in what you can understand until the ritual exchange.
And then he starts, okay. I'm very concerned. I put my hand, yeah, and then you pass out. So just as I'm about to put my hand on his shoulder, he blacks out and I catch him and I just say, we're getting out of here. I have his helmet. Boop, I put it on.
Yeah, you put him back in his helmet. You're able to resecure it. You get through. You cycle the airlock.
Yeah.
You get back in the card catalog, and y'all take off back out into the void. And that's, I think, a good place to stop the session.
Okay.
So we're out of time. Not quite out of time, but we're short on time, because we like to talk about why is this useful for transformative work? How did the game help that? What were the themes we explored? We had some pretty obvious today.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I just kept thinking about how people will do harm to themselves in the search for spiritual truths oftentimes, and neglect the rest of their life and don't worry about the bleeding, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, the one of my favorite things about Through the Void, and it's harder to explore in a short play period, but it is actually really the co-creative reality of it. Like, I think for me, I love emergent narrative, and so like I love the understanding of how do we unpack the story together. Like, I have a little bit of a concept around what the space is going to look like, but I haven't refined all the details of it. Not even just because I haven't like entirely written it out, right? But in the sense of, I always want to be able to turn to players and say, you tell me how you know this about what's happening with your character. What is the memory that you're offering? What is the thing that you're willing to give in order to receive what you seek? Like you said, some of those sacrificial things. But for me, that my favorite thing about it actually really is just that turning it away from the authoritarian reality of like, here's the GM, here's the players, but more of a look, one person's responsibility is to kind of lay the groundwork for what the scene is, but we're all inhabiting that. And I'm not even going to fill in all those details. Like, I'm going to depend on all of us to be able to say, here's where we're at, here's what we're doing.
I really like that co-creative part, that where we all get to contribute a portion of our imagination of the scene. I don't know, I feel more invested. I feel really invested in that.
Is it going too far to say that that's a good way to approach spirituality, the divine, God?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, like in my tradition, like the co-creative reality is a huge part of things. Like it's where a lot of how we understand the world around us really is driven from, and oftentimes like really missing in modern conversations around it. Like a God who may be in absolute authority, but also then invites us to enter into that same space because we are made like them and in their image. Like that is a huge piece to how I approach the world, as well as faith in general. And it's one of the things I like. I also just love space as as a place to explore that a little bit more than a dungeon.
Mm.
I think dungeons, we have a lot of tropes and mental handlebars we grab onto really quickly. I think when we're in space and we're mixing alien and human technology together and things are a little bit more like, I don't know what, like, tell me what anything it looks like. Let's go, you know.
Yeah.
We're a little bit freer in that space sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and um I don't know. I thought it was really interesting that my character was maybe kind of like that part of us that needs reflection, right? Like we need stuff reflected. Like, I see you hurting yourself, or I see that this is hurting you, and we need to take a step back, right? And yeah, that kind of again, like I keep going towards our experience of the divine is also experienced in community, and that community's purpose is for that kind of reflection of like, oh, I think we've gone too far, or yeah, let's keep going and I'll support you.
Well, and it's interesting, like Malark and Wings approached the same reality with two very different approaches, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go up and I'm going to hack into this. I'm going to logic it. I'm going to play with it. I'm going to mess around with it, explore it. And Malark's like, I'm going to let it into my brain.
Right.
Like, I ate some psychedelics and I'm going to let it in. I'm going to let it in. And I think those are two very valid ways of approaching the unknown, things that are beyond us. And I love just getting to see that in the microcosm. I even love, like, not Alex or Tech, but I love the other character in the space of, here's somebody who's dead, right? We saw death on the outside. We also see somebody who's set here, and maybe they died for a different reason. Maybe this thing killed them. Like, we don't have a sense of that, but another worshiper who came before, or another seeker who came before to this space, who was already there waiting for you. Like, for me, like, brings in this kind of feel of like an eternal kind of concept, which I dig. Like, I mean, like, I love little, like, that's like one of the few things I had jotted down on my notes in advance, was like, in one of these rooms, like, there's a dead person, you know, like,
right.
But no, this is very rarely, like, a lot of the stuff for Through the Void is really meant to be like, you can go back again, because we wrote it for you to be able to go 3 times and get 3 very different experiences. It's not intended for you to go all 3 of them. This drift is being written of, like, you should go to all 3 of these locations, and it will unlock something else if you go to all 3 of them and explore all 3 of them and get the information as players and characters and solve some weird riddles that we're implanting in the actual design of the game. You will unlock additional content in the game also too. So there is it's one of our first little, like, puzzle adventures that we're setting up to. And so
Nice.
which I like just being able to say, like, we as the designers have also put something in here for you to discover and play around with. But, like, there's that level, then there's the at your table level, and there's the player level that's happening thing also too, which I just super enjoy.
Yeah.
When I was, making this character, I was more conscious and intentional on putting some sort of spiritual ideas into the character. And I didn't necessarily intend it to be a healthy or a productive search. Like, you can't just search for truth and hope that it fixes everything. Like, so it's kind of like that place where I get stuck on the internet, hoping I can find something that will just, like, blow my mind, right? But through surfing for too many hours, it's like, no, it's not going to happen. You got to, like, really put energy and time into it. And I had a thought and I lost it.
The way you built your character to have questions.
Well, to have questions, but also not necessarily be a healthy search.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of obsessive, calling someone by the wrong name because you're too obsessed with your thing.
Yeah, and I hope that was an okay plan. I just loved it. It seemed to match where you were going with the character. But I do like. It's also interesting. Like, old school style games are games where I feel more comfortable, especially Through the Void Down We Go. Like, where it's like, I'm going to hand you parts of the world as a GM. There may be times where I take your character and say this thing about them. You as a player can always say, like, nope, like, I'm not comfortable with that, which is 100% fine. But I find that give and take when we're actually trying to tell that story together.
Mhm.
The more that I as a ref can give you control of the world, the more it feels comfortable every once in a while to be like, because of what you did, here's what's going to happen with your character. Here's a way that somebody else perceives you that may not be 100% comfortable for all of us, and let's sit with that tension, you know, for a second and see how that resolves out. And so yeah, no, it was interesting. I also think this is maybe one of the most interesting ship concepts I've seen someone build. I loved the book Terrarium, like this kind of desert space in some ways, as a representation of knowledge, which for me, like, I'm a huge fan of like early Christian spirituality, like desert
Mm.
fathers, desert
Oh, yeah.
mothers,
Yep.
as the, and generally as the desert as an empty space in which we go to encounter the divine, like that something is called out of us when we're in there. And to
Right.
have a ship that's in some ways desolate, but also life bearing inside of this truly desolate space of place of space was it just a fun, really fun concept to explore, even though we didn't spend a lot of time on the card catalog. I really enjoyed it.
No. There's a Jewish concept called halal penuya, I believe it's called, and my teacher translated as the fertile void.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right, and we're in the void of space, and there's this fertile ship going through it, and this place where things can happen.
Right.
I love that.
Right. And that's probably what drew Grace to Mellark as well, is sensing this like fertility amidst all this like death that Grace has experienced, uh, death and captivity, really. And then I encounter this this weird guy who's just bumbling towards the truth.
Yeah. And I like it's really interesting whenever I sit down, like when I think about spiritual themes in my games, which some of them very much have, and some of them are like, this was an homage to the brave little toaster because I'm processing my childhood trauma around it. Like um it's really interesting. And we was talking to Father Ben Wallace, who's a local game designer and Episcopal priest, and then like Adira Slattery, who's a Jewish poet
She's here in
and also a
Chicago.
game designer. Like we talked about, like, you know, what do you when you're Catholic, especially like people are like, how do you write Catholic games? I think Alexi Sargent from Cloven Pine Games writes some of my favorite games that have heavy Catholic themes in them. For me, a lot of it is like, I want to start by saying like, I want to make an excellent game, and then I want to look at how I explore ideas within that space, and then I want to narrow in on like, what is the specific thing we're looking to explore that might be connected to a root of faith, right? And so I think for like, lots of times they're like, well, you can't create Christian games because the entire culture is Christian, and there's some validity to that statement, 100%. But even within that, I think it's like, how do we zoom in? And I think any game, you can kind of zoom in as far as you want on things. And so, like for this one, knowing we were short on time, I went very heavy-handed on it, right? But I love the small moments that we can explore in any game where we just start to zoom in on a moment. I know I talked about Jason Cordova a little bit earlier, but we were playing the Between with him and one of my friends, Max. Max has a very different spiritual background than I was raised by witches in the woods. I was raised by Catholics in the suburbs. The our spiritual backgrounds are different, but like Max and I played two characters in the Between that was just tremendous because we zoomed in on my character, who was basically gets their powers from being seduced by demons, and Max's character, who is basically an immortal god sitting in the back of an Anglican church up in the choir loft near um the the organ, while my character is weeping in contrition, and their character is incredibly uncomfortable. And so we had this very human fallen character and this very godlike austere character right next to each other, but in this moment of very real intimacy. But
Mm.
it was zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in on what was the relationship between those two characters. I would have loved, I'd love if we were able to keep on playing to eventually find out what was the thing that that Malark had said to Grace that had really shifted that perspective, right? And in emergent narrative, you usually don't get that till like 3, 4, 20 sessions in. You usually don't get it session one.
Right.
You get a sense that it's there. You ask the question, but you don't get to zoom in on it. And that's the only kind of downside to emergent narrative games a lot of the time.
And the
Wow.
downside to our timing is that we're out of time.
We're out.
Of course, true to form, we are in the meaty part of our discussion.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I guess leave ourselves and everybody wanting more. You can find Tony at +1EXP across most socials, but Tony +1 on Itch and Twitch. You can watch our show on Twitch, and you can watch previous shows on YouTube at Cast Gamers. And our future guests include Avery Alder, Jay Dragon, Ryan Cagle, and Connor Alexander.
All my friends are coming on your show.
Yay!
Imagine that.
I mean, I wouldn't. Avery, I don't know Avery. I would love if Avery would be friends with me. Avery, if you're watching, all the rest of those people are so amazing. So
yeah, I'm super excited.
What an honor to have you here, Tony.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me so much. If you do go over, because Kayla noticed, I do have a game about mascots from fast food restaurants that I have rewritten into playable characters, of which one is a vampire chicken nugget. You can check that out.
Kayla, our producer, loves vampires.
And so it is Vamp Nugula and Friends, which are all pulled from restaurant mascots across the world, especially from the 90s.
That's fantastic.
It's very good. It's designed for Troika, but it's a blast to play. Kayla, if you want to play it sometime, we can play it sometime. And so
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I guess we will see you in about a month, or do we want to do our closing ritual real quick?
Oh, we usually do the names in reverse.
Yep.
So I played Malark.
Hi, Malark.
I'm Malark.
And I am Menachem.
Hi, Menachem. And I played Wings.
Later, Wings.
Later, Wings.
And I am Tanya.
Sweet dreams, Tanya.
Sweet dreams, Tanya.
You too.
I was your keeper.
Hi, keeper. Thank you.
I am Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Pleasant dreams, Tony.
Yeah, pleasant dreams.
You. Until next month.
Yes. Till next month. Thank you so much, everyone.